As a business leader, you might think that your job is about strategy, finance, or operations, but often your biggest headaches come from people. You might expect the occasional performance issue or a resignation here or there, but what about being dragged into a marital dispute between your leadership team, or finding out that a manager is planning on leaving and finding out 2 months before they've told you? Well, in today's episode of De-Stress Your Business, we're diving into the wide, weird world of people problems and why line managers are your best tool for handling them well. We'll talk about how to build strong, appropriate relationships with your teams so that when the bumps in life and business come, and they will come, that you're not flying blind. Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at AirManual. Now, today we're talking about a particular kind of stress that every business leader will face at some point, which is people problems. And not just the kind that you can prepare for with the performance review template or an org chart update. It's those weird, awkward, I can't believe this is part of my job kind of problems. A partner at an accountancy firm recently shared with me a few memorable stories of this kind, including a client who was running a business with their husband and one day came in to talk about removing her husband from the business because she'd found out that he was cheating on her with someone who worked at the business that they owned together. And how did she know this? Well, he was caught red-handed in the car with a recording device that she had placed there. Now, this wasn't even news for the accountancy partner that I was talking to because he'd already heard the whole thing from their bookkeeper, who was a former employee of his. So when he had this client walk into the office, he had to step into the role of divorce lawyer, counselor, business advisor, all in one, which certainly isn't part of what he covered as part of studying accountancy. But the thing is, if you run a business, you'll eventually get pulled into something personal and messy, whether it's of your clients or your team members, whether it's someone struggling with childcare or going through a divorce or thinking about quitting or just acting strangely, and you can feel something's off, but maybe they won't even say what. So how do you avoid being blindsided and ending up in these difficult situations? Well, this is where good line management comes in. Line management and line managers should work as an early warning system. They're the ones that can hear the offhand comment or see the missed deadlines or notice the tension before it spills out. But this only works if the relationship between the manager and their team is built on trust. If your team members can't talk to their manager, or worse, just won't because of bad experiences, then those issues will fester and grow. And eventually they land on your desk or the top leadership's desk 10 times worse than they needed to be. So we need that strong line manager-employee relationship. And it's not just about being best friends, right? In fact, being too close can sometimes backfire. But they do need to be based on trust, open communication, creating emotional safety, but also having clear boundaries. When managers create space for regular human conversations, not just task updates, then people are more likely to share when something's wrong. And that gives you a chance to help or at least prepare. Now, if you're thinking, oh, great, but none of my managers are that in tune with their teams, the good news is that this is a skill you can build. It's something that I used to be absolutely terrible at and feared and avoided it completely. I didn't have one-to-ones with staff members. I avoided managing them at all, and it always bit me. However, I've been able to become a great line manager and put structures and systems in my business that mean that all of my line managers across my businesses are great line managers. And often it's simple things, having simple habits or having things in place that make the difference. So, for example, regular one-to-ones. Highly recommend having weekly one-to-ones between all line managers and their direct reports, 30 minutes each, makes a huge difference. And having a good agenda, which includes asking, how are things really going? Like, how are things going overall? And creating a no blame culture where it's safe to say, I'm struggling, or I'm feeling really tired at the moment, or I'm overwhelmed. I had this with a direct report of mine recently. He's been dealing with some family stuff, and so it's spilling into work. And so I want my team members to be able to share that with me so that I can say, well, let's reset your priorities so that you can rest. And as a result, get them to go off, rest, sleep, whatever that they need so that they can be at their best for the things that are more high priority, but also so that they can come back stronger and be able to deliver rather than spiraling downward and burning out. So you want your managers to be approachable, but also confident enough to set boundaries and protect the team. Now, sometimes it's the smallest clues that something's going on. Perhaps someone who's being unusually quiet, or a high performer who starts missing small details, or, yes, the receptionist seems to just know way too much. In fact, one partner or a leader in a business I spoke to knew that a manager was going to resign 2 months before they officially handed in their notice because the receptionist told them. And so they had that information. Now, gossip isn't a management tool, but if you've created a culture where people feel safe to speak up, then you won't have to rely on office whispers. I've had situations where team members have shared, actually, I've been thinking about whether it's time for me to move organization. And they've shared that months before they imagine they might even start looking. And it's given us an opportunity to change their role or growth opportunities or whatever to fit that better because they've been open with us. And equally, I know businesses where they've had people leave because they felt like they wanted a particular different role or a growth opportunity or whatever. And then they leave. And then perhaps even part of the exit interview, they share that feedback. And the business leaders are saying, oh, well, we could have done that. We could have done that if we'd known sooner. Why didn't they tell us? And of course, it's fair. You could put it on the employee to say, oh, well, why didn't they tell us? But actually, you want this for your business too. You have to create the opportunities for them to share that. You have to create the culture that means that people feel capable, able to do that. And one of the things that, for example, we have in my businesses is that we call it an HR check-in, but essentially it's a proactive exit interview. So it's an opportunity for us to check in, and we run them annually, where essentially we're asking the sorts of questions we would ask as part of an exit interview. It's just they haven't exited. And so we're asking, if you were to leave to go anywhere else, what would you be looking for? Or what would cause you not to leave, and what might change that would cause you to leave? And understanding those things, creating that opportunity, creating that transparency and openness to hearing those things from your team is really important. So if you want fewer surprises, less drama, less stress, and frankly, just less time spent playing therapist to your team, then help your line managers build those strong, appropriate relationships with their teams. And it's not just about performance and getting the results. You have to realize it's about resilience. It's about the employee as a whole, because life will happen. People will have crises, and your business needs to be ready to support them without falling apart in the process. So I hope you found that useful. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of De-Stress Your Business. And if this episode sparked a few memories or a few worries, then perhaps reach out or share or message me via social media or whatever. Or if you feel like perhaps there's someone else in your team that kind of needs to hear this, then perhaps share this episode with your leadership team. But otherwise, until next time, have fun.